Welcome, everybody, to the CPG Suite. We are not your average corporate crew. We're a lively mix of CPG enthusiasts from the CPG Co-Op. We also call ourselves the Co-Opers. We're blending expertise, passion, and a pinch of humor to spice up your brand journey. Join us as we dish out hot takes, fresh insights, and a few laughs, turning the often very daunting CPG world into an adventure. Whether you're looking to level up or just love what you do a little more, the CPG C-Suite is your VIP pass to the top shelf in brand brilliance. Buckle up and let's go, because we have some hot topics today, y'all. So the first part we're going to talk about is natural ingredients. But first, I need to introduce everybody, because that would be most important, because we do have two amazing founders here. So I'm going to first introduce Max and Priya, the married dynamic duo who do finance and accounting. This is Paul Beaupre, who is a fractional COO and GM, and Monty Ammons, who is our operations, manufacturing, and supply chain guru. This is the rest, well, not even the rest. This is another addition to our co-op team, and what we do is actually help CPG brands thrive. And what we're going to focus on now is actually natural ingredients. And Max and Priya, I'd love to start with you two and tell us what you do as founders, and then we can move into like what we're seeing with the trends and everything else. So please take it away.
Well, our company is called You Again Super Honey. We're sourcing raw wildflower honey from here in Texas, and we're blending it with various Eastern superfoods. And it's basically an energy gel pouch. So we're targeting sort of the athletes and marathon runners. Our goal with this ingredient is basically there's a trend with raw honey, which is really not a term. It's really unfiltered, unpasteurized honey, because people know that they can get all the phytonutrients and minerals from this honey. So there's a big trend, and so we're trying to convince people and to consume it daily and consume it right out of the package. But we're also seeing a big trend alongside this with honey as an ingredient in many, many natural foods products. So we're seeing it as a sweetener in coffee. We're seeing it basically as a go-to sweetener in many natural products right now.
Yeah, my daughter uses it as a face mask.
Yeah, that's great.
And so you said you're targeting triathletes and stuff. So Monty, Paul, and I were your target audience. Is that where we're going with that? Okay.
Hey, I've done some triathlons. I've got some triathlons under my belt. You're a swimmer.
I was a swimmer, but not anymore. But that's really fascinating. So I think obviously as natural ingredients, Paul, Monty, is there anything that you're seeing with natural ingredients in the market? Yeah.
Working in the beverage space, particularly a lot of the functional beverage space, I'm seeing an explosion of just ingredients. Everything functional, from maca from South America, which has all types of properties, including female libido enhancement, to kava, to horny goat weed, to
this is going south real quick.
Yeah. That's what I do, right? So open it up and be careful what you get, right? But there's an explosion of all these ingredients, and what I've seen, and Paul, I'd love your take too, but I'm seeing that over time, more and more of the functional beverages are adding just a little bit of pixie dust so that they can claim yet another function that their beverage brings to the table. So it's really been interesting how this has just exploded.
Yeah,
I would agree. I think both of these people have brought up some good comments. One of them is around sweeteners.
Yeah.
We hear a lot of talk about how is it sweetened? Is it natural sugar? Is it stevia? Is the monk fruits? And then to Monty's point about functionality, I think functionality is kind of a funny word. Most beverages or foods provide some function.
Sure.
And some of them are designated more. But I think around, the mushrooms, the cordyceps, the lion's mane, the magnesium to relax. What is the ingredient and what function does it help you with?
Got it. I saw someone was talking to me yesterday about sea moss.
Yeah.
And there was like a drink out there with sea moss.
Yes.
I'm forgetting the name of it, but I was like, this is a new one. Well, I think this also leads itself into natural ingredients come from all over the world, don't they?
Yes.
Okay. So we're going to move into a tough topic, but as we've been seeing on LinkedIn and even in my husband's industry, which is tech, tariffs are impacting everyone. And our job here and role here at the CPG Co-op is to help founders navigate tough times. Obviously, we went through COVID, which was not even a few years ago, which was some time ago now. And that was always a surprise. And there's always a surprise in CPG. I'm sure you guys can violently nod your head yes. But we do want to help navigate with tariffs and what this is impacting and how we can maybe provide some support. And I think we were talking yesterday, maybe a few silver linings that might be out there or ways to think about this. And Monty and I were talking yesterday, both military kids, and my dad used to say, improvise, adapt, and overcome. And this is maybe one of those moments. So I love to turn to our finance and accounting people first, because I feel this is really where founders should start when you're thinking about how to navigate around this. And then we can also talk about contingency plans and what you can do to kind of plan for it and work around it. So I'd love to get your takes on this. Yeah.
I think one of the important things right now, always, but more than ever right now, because tariffs are something that unfortunately we can't control, right? There's certain things we can control. This is something that we cannot. So it's even more of an important time to emphasize our margin. We love talking about margins. We're margin nerds, but it's, do we have enough buffer in our margin to support things that we can't control, like the tariffs? And if we don't, then what are some of the costs that we can cut? So for example, specifically talking about our brand, because we're seeing it there too, we are not impacted by the tariffs because we do source everything here. But, for something like film, instead of procuring that through our co-packer, who's then charging us more, can we go directly to the film manufacturer and cut costs there, improve our margin? So that's something that we've done and something that we've helped.
You've actually done that.
We actually did that and had a huge savings on our COGS.
Oh, that's
obviously,
cool. Okay.
A larger spread in our margin.
Right.
Something you can control and something that we would advise other founders to look at, and we can obviously help them with that.
Cool. Max, what's your take?
Yeah, I think with our brand, part of our ethos has always been keeping a tight supply chain. We sell raw wildflower honey from Texas, and that's part of our selling proposition. But we've also tried to keep things as close to that Texas location as possible, including all the packaging and all the other components, because we want to have control. We want to know our suppliers. And I do think if when a brand is starting out, if they can plan to really have those relationships with their suppliers, when shocks do come, they'll have a lot more control over the supply chain. And that's something that maybe a more scaled brand can't change immediately. But there's a lot of value. And so even if you're giving up some margin in the early days, it's like you charge the right price, have some protection there, and then also be willing to give up a little bit in order to have like more control and more flexibility over your total supply chain. And one of the things that I always advise founders that are sort of starting out, and one of the things that I've learned from my experience is you really need to know the step changes in your margin profile. So it's like, when you're doing like a pilot run, you're going to pay a lot for all your components. But where are the break points? Where are you going to get big savings? When do you get to certain minimum order quantities? Which more scaled supplier can you go to? How do you make those changes? And if you have those changes mapped out and you know exactly how to execute on them, then you can move into them quickly and find savings for your COGS, basically.
Is that what y'all do? I mean, can y'all set that out for people and look at those? What did you call them? I'm so sorry.
I call it like a step change.
Step change.
It's economies of scale.
I love this. Okay.
One of the things I'd love to piggyback on
Monty,
that Max said that is really important and gets lost is you mentioned the planning aspect. And I think very few founders do that. You're caught in the day-to-day fires and you don't necessarily plan, especially what are your sales going to be and what's that implication to your supply chain. And that's always been important, but it's even more critical now whenever you're in times of flux like this, whether it was COVID, whether it's what we're going through now with the tariffs. If you don't plan and you're trying to just in time nowadays, you can be dead in the water, especially as an early stage company. So I think that was a great point of the planning aspect. And I think if there's anything that you start tomorrow from coming out of this, if you're not doing sales and ingredient and production planning, start tomorrow, because that's critical to your brand, and you can't even get to the optimization of profitability until you do that. I know.
Yeah, we also help with that, guys.
In that space.
Yes,
right?
you did.
Yeah. I think getting back to one of your points about coming out of the pandemic, Emily, I think one silver lining to that from a CPG perspective is people got much more aware of their supply chains.
Yes.
And if they can heighten that now to understand the cost implications and the pricing strategy. And one thing that they wouldn't have to do quite as much is like the channel shifts and the channel strategy as much. Right. But I think there was some silver linings and preparations and muscle built during the pandemic that can be put into play with these tariffs and potential tariffs because it's changing so quickly. But to have optionality and scenario planning is critical.
we were just talking about this yesterday, and we were also talking yesterday about, and this probably would make your heads fall off, but a lot of people we notice don't also do forecasting. I am married to a finance person, and thankfully I know all the lingo, kind of, I guess, but the forecasting, and I kind of did this when he said that, but it's important to forecast, correct? And like you're talking about that, room for margins. And in the last podcast we just did, the tip everyone had was margins. I mean, it was around the room, right? And so since we don't know, since it feels like it's kind of like is it or is it going to, is it not, is whatever. What is like a tip that one of you guys can give? I'm going to go around the room and say, like, what is the one tip that you can give? I know you said planning, but is there something else you can think of that you can tell founders? Maybe they're not local and they don't have that lower ripple. They have a pretty big ripple effect, right? So what can founders do, or even larger brands do, to get ready for this or make it okay, not okay, but manageable?
Yeah. One of the first exercises I always do with any company I'm working with is essentially running a unit economics by channel, by SKU, and really working through that so people can see, in plain paper exactly what their margins are in those channels. They might want to scale things back or invest more in a different channel. The planning aspect can be difficult, but if you need multiple stakeholders in the company to basically do like a top-down forecast, like what are our aggressive goals. Then you need sort of a more realistic bottom-up forecast, maybe with a finance person involved, really figuring out what the drivers are for the sales forecast, and somehow meet in the middle and then talk to your operations people and really make sure that you can execute on planning for that. And then once you're looking at actuals, I always think just looking at the P&L on a unit economics basis always is helpful. So it's like, what for every can sold, like how many dollars of gross revenue am I bringing in this channel, down to how many dollars of profit or loss do I have, and being able to look at every line that way. It usually illuminates things where there's savings or changes that should be made a lot more than looking at percentages and other things, like really understanding the pennies for every line item on your P&L.
This makes me so happy. Go ahead, Priya.
I was just going to piggyback off of what Monty was saying on the planning perspective from a finance side. If that involves buying more inventory so that you have it, obviously not in the space to do just in time right now. Mm-hmm. That can be daunting because it's okay, I have a lot of cash to outlay right now to make this production run. That's where we can, you can look at inventory financing. It might be an opportunity to say, okay, I have to go into this large production run to mitigate some of the tariffs I might see, to make sure that I have enough inventory on hand for the next 30, 60, 90 days.
Okay.
Is this an opportunity to think about inventory financing, PO financing,
sure,
to help me with that cash flow? So I think that's an opportunity for refiners to kind of understand too.
We need to do a whole episode on that one too.
That's a good point.
Yes, Paul. Any of your
thoughts? Not too much more to add. I would say if your organization is large, having some good sales and operation planning, joint venturing, so one hand's talking to the other, and probably including finance would be important. A lot of the companies we work with, that's not departments and staffs.
Right.
It's one or two people.
Yeah.
But just having those common linkages between finance, operations, and sales, so you're all kind of working off the same sheet, working together, pulling in the same direction.
Yeah, and I think even as a solo founder, and Monty, I'll let you, but I think as a solo founder, thinking with those hats on, and I know founders wear a lot of hats, right? But I was also a founder with a pie company, and I had to put like my operations hat on, then I put my marketing hat on, then I had to put my finance hat on, then I had to put my legal hat, it was like all these things, but how you combine all those together is really, really important, even if you are a solo and you have an intern like I did. So yeah, Monty, go ahead.
Piggybacking on all this, I think one of the things, if you don't start anything tomorrow, start the sales and operations planning, even if it's just two of you, even if it's just you thinking about both sides of the fence.
Yeah.
But start throwing darts, man. What are my sales going to be? What am I going to need to deliver those sales? What are my production lead times going to be? What are my ingredient lead times going to be, especially now? So even if you're just throwing darts and taking shots at it, do that, and do that weekly, so that you've got this cadence. Once you start that process, it becomes part of your DNA and becomes part of your habit. And it will be amazing how much better your business will run, how how infrequently you'll find yourself going to a co-packer begging to get line time or having to pay rush charges to get an ingredient there. Your life will smooth out so much more. So if you don't do anything else, that would be my suggestion to do. It would help you. A couple other things that I'm seeing just relative to the tariffs real quickly. If your margins are not great and you have some elasticity, this could be a good time to take price because the world is going to be taking price. Mm-hmm. So you might be thinking about that. If the whole world is doing it, it's a good time to jump in, jump into the pool, right? Mm-hmm. The other thing that I'm seeing is this is an opportunity. We were talking the other day about,
I love this.
A lot of the beverages and a lot of the foods have been cramming so many ingredients in to try and get every functionality known to man. And a lot of it's just pixie dust and it's not adding any efficacy and it's just driving up cost. This could be a good time to do a reformulation. I'm seeing a lot of that, of pulling out that pixie dust and just doubling down on this is what my food, my beverage, my product delivers. And here's the only few ingredients I'm doing. It's better for your cost. It's better for the consumer because there's a lot of stuff going out there that has no efficacy. Yeah. And the consumer is eventually going to start calling BS and saying, I'm not going to buy this because it's not doing anything for me. And we're talking too about this. Sorry, Monty and I had like a deep conversation about this yesterday, but I think it was, when you do that, when you're looking and you change something out of your product, to really consider the marketing side. I'm going to always bring back to marketing, guys. I can't help myself. But that could be also a positive too, right? If you're thinking about, if you do have to eliminate something, it's going to be okay, right? And it goes back into the, like how we think about things at the co-op. Obviously it's all interconnected, but it really starts with branding and positioning. And then how do you move it forward into like this train that we have, right? So if you're going to do that, think about your branding and positioning and what that means for the consumer, then think about your marketing and think about your financials and then think about the operation. I mean, it's so interconnected. So I loved that when we talked about that yesterday. I thought that was really unique. So that's it for me. Max, Priya. Oh, go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, one thing Monty made me think of, and you kind of stole it a little bit, but it's great when you think about your operations. Yeah. And I don't know if it starts at operations or ends there, but if it's a good time to clean up your ingredient list and simplify, think about your marketing. I mean, maybe you don't have to accomplish 7 different functions, but there's 2 or 3 key ones. Yeah. Maybe you align your ingredient base with how you go to market and how you position yourself. Yeah. You can tell a consumer 1, 2, maybe 3 things that you do for them. But when you start like throwing them 10 things, it's like a tennis ball. If I throw you 1 or 2, you can catch them. Yeah. If I throw you 7 or 8, you just want to get away. You think I'm attacking you. Yeah. And so it's nice if you can tie them all together. Yeah,
I agree. This is a great opportunity. We're talking about like that might be the silver lining. Sure. And it might give you a time to pause and reflect and think about your brand and think about your mission and your vision for your brand, which you should all have, by the way. So being able to think about that and really making it maybe a key turn and it's turning lemons into lemonade sometimes. This might be your chance to do so. So I thank you guys so much for all of your time. Monty, Paul, Priya, Max, thank you guys. And I'm Emily Keeley once again, and we are making CPG a little less chaotic, one episode at a time. So join us next time for the CPG Suite. And thank you all very much.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, guys.